Clara Harrove was only 15 when her twin sister Lily vanished after a bitter argument, the last words between them still echoing in her mind 2 decades later. Everyone said Lily ran away. The case was closed, forgotten. But when remains are discovered in a construction site with Lily's ID, the past comes roaring back. Only the body isn't Lily's, and what's buried alongside it leads Clara down a haunting trail of buried truths and a danger that was closer than anyone ever imagined. The photograph stared back at Clara from the album page. 2 12-year-old girls with identical faces but different smiles. Lily's grin stretched wide and genuine, while Clara's looked forced, caught mid-laugh at some forgotten joke. The kitchen clock read 21:17 a.m., its red digits burning into the darkness. Clara traced her finger along the plastic covering. 20 years. 20 years of sleepless nights, of jumping every time the phone rang, of scanning crowds for a face that would never appear. She turned the page and stopped. There, they were both girls at 15 arms linked, standing in front of the high school. Spring formal dance, 1985. Lily wore the blue dress they'd fought over for weeks, the one that brought out her eyes. Clara had ended up in the pink disaster their mother insisted complemented her complexion. 3 weeks before everything changed, the memory crashed over her without warning. "You can't tell anyone," Lily whispered, gripping Clara's wrist as they sat on Clara's bed. The house buzzed with Friday night energy, their parents downstairs arguing about the electric bill, the neighbor's dog barking at shadows. Clara rolled her eyes. "It's just a crush, Lily, not like this." Lily's cheeks flushed pink. "Promise me you won't say anything, especially not to Sarah and the others." "Fine, I promise." Clara flopped back against her pillow. "But seriously, Mr. Davis, he has that weird mustache." Lily's face crumpled. "You don't understand. He actually listens to me. When I stay after class to ask questions, he treats me like I'm smart, not just some dumb kid. Just promise me," Lily said again. Clara stared at the ceiling, counting the glow-in-the-dark stars they'd stuck there 2 summers ago. "I promise." Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling. Clara's mood matched the weather as she trudged through the hallway toward her locker. Sarah Martinez and Beth Kowalski clustered near the water fountain, their voices carrying that particular pitch that meant fresh gossip. "Clara," Sarah waved her over. "You look terrible late night." "Something like that." Clara fumbled with her combination lock. The numbers blurred together. 1738, or was it 238? "Did you finish the history report?" Beth asked. "Because I am totally screwed if Jenkins actually collects them today." "Yeah, barely." The lock clicked open. Clara stuffed her jacket inside, then pulled out her chemistry textbook. The weight of it made her shoulder ache. "Speaking of barely," Sarah lowered her voice conspirationally, "did you see Lily heading to Davis's classroom after school Friday again?" Clara's stomach clenched. She slammed the locker door harder than necessary. So it's like the 3rd time this month." Beth joined in. "My sister had Davis 2 years ago. She said he always picks a favorite." The words tumbled out before Clara could stop them. "Maybe because she has a massive crush on him." Sarah's eyes went wide. "Lily really? Oh my God," Beth breathed. "That's so weird," Sarah finished. "I mean, he's got to be at least 35, and that mustache makes him look like a creepy mall Santa." They dissolved into giggles. Clara forced herself to join in, even as her chest filled with something that tasted like battery acid. The bell rang. Students scattered toward their first period classrooms. Clara gathered her books and tried to ignore the way Sarah and Beth immediately put their heads together, whispering. By lunch, the story had grown arms and legs. "How could you?" The memory of Lily's voice cut through the silence. That night, standing in Clara's bedroom doorway. "I didn't mean you promised." Lily's words came out flat, empty. "You looked me in the eye and promised. They already suspected something. You just, what? Thought it would be funny. Thought it would make them like you more. Maybe you shouldn't have such a stupid crush in the first place." Lily had gone very still. Then she'd walked away. An hour later, Clara heard the front door slam. That was the last time she ever saw her sister. The next day, the phone on the counter rang. Clara's heart hammered as she reached for it. "Hello, Mrs. Coleman. This is Detective Reynolds with the County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling about your sister, Lily Hargrove." Clara's hand tightened around the phone. 20 years of waiting and she still wasn't prepared. "What's this about?" "We found remains." Human remains discovered at a construction site on Highway 49. There was identification with the body. The kitchen tilted. Clara gripped the counter edge. Is it, ma'am? I need you to come down to the station. There are some things we need to discuss. Just tell me, please. Detective Reynolds cleared his throat. The ID found with the remains belongs to your sister, but ma'am, there's something else. The DNA results don't match. I don't understand. The body isn't your sister's. According to our lab, the remains belong to a Jessica Linwood. She disappeared in 1986, about a year after your sister went missing. Clara's legs gave out. She slid down the cabinet doors until she sat on the cold linoleum. Then where's Lily? That's what we need to figure out. Can you come in this morning? Say around 10:00. Yes. Her voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. I'll be there. Detective Jim Reynolds looked older than his 52 years as he spread crime scene photographs across the metal table. Clara sat across from him in the sterile interview room, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed and flickered, casting harsh shadows under her eyes. These are difficult to look at, Reynolds warned, but I need you to tell me if you recognize anything. Clara nodded and leaned forward. The first photograph showed skeletal remains arranged on an examination table. The construction crew found the body about 6 ft down. Reynolds continued, Been there a long time. Coroner estimates 15 to 20 years, which fits our timeline. He slid another photo toward her, a driver's license in a clear evidence bag, the plastic cracked and faded but still legible. Lily Ann Hargrove, date of birth, March 15, 1970. The photo showed Lily at 15 smiling, that same wide grin from Clara's album. This was in the victim's back pocket along with this. Reynolds placed a second evidence bag on the table. Inside lay a thin silver bracelet, tarnished black in places but still intact. Clara's breath caught. That's Lily's. I gave it to her for our 15th birthday. See the inscription? She pointed to tiny letters etched along the band. Sisters forever? You're certain completely. She never took it off. Ever. Clara's voice cracked. But you said the DNA doesn't match. That's correct. The remains belong to Jessica Marie Linwood, age 14, when she disappeared in September 1986, 15 months after your sister went missing. Reynolds pulled out a manila folder. Jessica lived on Maple Street, about 2 miles from your family's house, attended the same high school as you and Lily. Clara studied the missing person report Reynolds handed her. Jessica's school photo showed a thin girl with shoulder-length brown hair and wide, nervous eyes. I don't remember her. She was a year younger than you. Kept to herself, according to teachers. Parents divorced when she was 13. Lived with her mother and stepfather, Tom Bradley. Right? He reported Jessica missing on September 23, 1986. Said she'd been acting out, staying away from home. Figured she was just another runaway teen. Reynolds' tone carried 20 years of skepticism. Case went cold pretty fast. Clara stared at Jessica's photograph. Something about the girl's expression, weary like she expected disappointment, reminded her of Lily in those final weeks before she disappeared. Why would she have Lily's ID? That's the million-dollar question. Reynolds gathered the photos back into their folder. Either your sister gave it to her, or Jessica took it from her. Either way, it means they knew each other. So what do we do now? It's time to have a chat with Tom Bradley. You think he knows something. Reynolds' expression darkened. Let's just say Mr. Bradley wasn't exactly cooperative during the original investigation. Worth another conversation. Do you think Tom Bradley is responsible for Jessica's demise? Comment below. How did Jessica end up with Lily ID in her bracelet? Most importantly, where's Lily? Give this video a like and keep watching to find out. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from today. Tom Bradley's auto repair shop squatted between a pawn shop and a boarded-up diner on Industrial Road. Its hand-painted sign faded to barely legible blue letters. Detective Reynolds parked across the street and watched Bradley emerge from underneath a rusted pickup truck. The man looked every one of his 63 years, had his gray hair pulled back in a thin ponytail work shirt, stretched tight over a beer gut that spoke of too many nights drowning whatever conscience he had left. Mr. Bradley Reynolds approached with his badge visible. Detective Reynolds County Sheriff's Office. We spoke on the phone. Bradley straightened slowly, wiping grease-blackened hands on a shop rag. His eyes held the particular weariness of a man accustomed to disappointing authority figures. Yeah, make it quick. I don't have all day. Reynolds studied the man's face, looking for tells. Bradley's expression remained neutral, almost resigned. Either he was an exceptional actor or genuinely unsurprised by the news. When did you last see Jessica, Mr. Bradley? Same thing I told the cops. 20 years ago. September 22nd, 1986. Came home from work around 7. She wasn't there. Never saw her again. You reported her missing the next day. Bradley shrugged. Thought she'd come back on her own. Kids run off all the time when they're mad. What was Jessica mad about? Hell. What wasn't she mad about? Her mother and I were having problems. I was drinking too much back then. Bradley's honesty felt calculated, like he'd rehearsed this confession years ago. Jessica blamed me for her mom being miserable. Can't say she was wrong. Reynolds pulled out his notebook. Neighbors mentioned arguments, loud ones. Jessica had a mouth on her when she got worked up. Kid could scream loud enough to wake the dead. Something flickered across Bradley's features, a wheeze that seemed genuine. But I never laid a hand on her, not once. What about the night before she disappeared? Bradley's jaw tightened. She came home late. Real late. I asked where she'd been. She told me to mind my own damn business. I might have raised my voice. Might have. Okay, I yelled, told her she was grounded. She laughed at me and went to her room. Bradley leaned against the workbench. Next morning she was gone. Left a note saying she was tired of living in a house full of drunks and losers. Reynolds looked up from his notes. You still have this note. Threw it away about 10 years ago when I moved. Didn't see the point in keeping it. Convenient, Reynolds thought. Where do you think Jessica went that night? Said she was studying with a friend. Which friend? Bradley's laugh held no humor. Detective, that girl probably never told me anything real. For all I know, she could have been shooting heroin behind the 7-Eleven. Jessica's body was found with someone else's identification. Name of Lily Hargrove. Mean anything to you? Bradley's face went carefully blank. Huh? No. Should it? Lily disappeared in May of 1985, over a year before Jessica went missing. So it suggests the girls knew each other. That maybe Jessica wasn't just a runaway. For the first time, Bradley looked genuinely surprised. You think someone killed them both? I think someone killed Jessica, and I think you know more than you're telling me. Bradley straightened his hands, curling into fists. Now hold on a minute. You reported Jessica missing, but according to the neighbors, you seemed more relieved than worried. Did you? The question hung between them like a blade. Bradley stared at Reynolds for a long moment, then turned back to the pickup truck. I think we're done talking, Detective. Unless you're planning to arrest me, I've got work to do. Reynolds pocketed his notebook. Don't leave town, Mr. Bradley. We'll have more questions soon. As he walked back to his car, Reynolds could feel Bradley's eyes on his back. 3 days later, Reynolds sat in District Attorney Patricia Voss's office while she reviewed the Bradley file. Outside her window, rain drummed against glass, turning the world gray and bleak. It's thin, Voss said, finally closing the folder. Circumstantial at best. That's what we need to find out. I've got Officer Chen running background checks on Bradley's employment history, looking for other incidents, and I want to arraign the neighbors, see what else they remember about that family. Voss tapped her pen against the desk. What about the ID issue? How do you explain Jessica having Lily Harrow's license and bracelet? Bradley claims he doesn't know anything about Lily, but maybe Jessica found the stuff somewhere. Lot of maybe, Jim. It's the best theory we have right now. Bradley had motive. Unstable home drinking problem stepdaughter who was out of control. He had opportunity. Last person to see Jessica alive, and his behavior after her disappearance was suspicious. Get me more, Voss said, standing to signal the meeting was over. I need something solid before we move forward with charges. Bradley's not going anywhere. That evening, Reynolds drove through Jessica's old neighborhood. He parked outside the McKinnon house and knocked on the door. Doris McKinnon answered. I knew this day would come, she said, bustling around the kitchen. That man had the devil in him when he drank, and he drank every night. Tell me about the arguments. Lord, where do I start? Doris set a steaming mug in front of him. That poor girl walked on eggshells in that house. Tom would come home from work already half drunk, looking for reasons to pick fights. Jessica learned to stay out of his way, but sometimes she couldn't help herself. What do you mean she'd stand up for her mother? When Tom would start yelling at Marie about dinner or money or whatever set him off that day, Jessica would jump right in. Brave little thing, but foolish, just made him mad. Reynolds sipped his coffee. Too sweet, but he didn't want to interrupt Doris's flow. What about that last night? Oh, that was the worst one yet. Started around 9:00. Jessica came home late. I saw her walking up the driveway from my bedroom window. Tom was waiting for her on the front porch. What did you hear him yelling about respect and rules and how she was turning into a worthless little just like her mother? Shocked me to hear him talk that way about Marie. Poor woman never did anything but try to keep the peace. What did Jessica say back? Doris's expression darkened. She told him she'd found somewhere better to be. Said she didn't have to live with his drinking and his threats anymore, that someone cared about her enough to help her. Reynolds set down his mug. Someone was helping her. That's what she said. Tom asked who, and she laughed at him. Said it was none of his business that her real friend understood what she was going through. Made Tom furious. Did she mention a name? Not that I heard, but Tom. He got real quiet after that. Scary quiet. That's when he said the thing about her being sorry. Anything else? Jessica slammed the front door so hard it rattled my windows. Hour later, I heard Tom's truck start up. He drove off somewhere and didn't come back until morning. The arrest warrant came through on a Thursday morning. Reynolds found Bradley at his shop bent over the engine of a blue sedan that had seen better decades. This time, Bradley didn't look surprised when the detective approached. Thomas Bradley, you're under arrest for the murder of Jessica Linwood. Reynolds recited the Miranda warning while two uniformed officers flanked Bradley's escape routes. Bradley straightened slowly, oil dripping from his hands onto the concrete floor. You got it wrong, detective. That's what they all say. Reynolds gestured for Bradley to turn around. Hands behind your back. I didn't kill that girl. Save it for your lawyer. By 8:00 a.m., Reynolds was back at the station pulling Bradley's file and spreading it across his desk. Officer Chen knocked on his office door. Detective Tom Bradley's lawyer is here. Says he has some questions about the evidence. Send him in. Robert Kowalski was a small-town attorney who handled divorces and DUI cases, not murder defenses. But he carried himself with quiet confidence as he settled into the chair across from Reynolds' desk. My client says you've made a mistake. Your client would say that regardless. Normally, yes, but Tom Bradley is a lot of things. An alcoholic, a lousy husband, a mediocre stepfather. He's not a liar. Kowalski opened a manila folder. He also has an alibi for the time period when Jessica Linwood disappeared. We checked his story. No one could verify because you didn't check thoroughly enough. Kowalski slid a document across the desk. Riverside Treatment Center, Inpatient Alcohol Rehabilitation, September the 15th through October 22nd, 1986. Reynolds stared at the paper, his stomach sinking. Detective, my client was in a locked facility when Jessica Linwood went missing. Unless you think he developed teleportation powers, you've got the wrong man. Clara answered her phone on the second ring, hoping it was Detective Reynolds with news about Bradley's interrogation. Instead, she heard uncertainty in his voice. Mrs. Coleman, I need to see you again. There's been a development. Tom Bradley didn't kill Jessica. Clara felt a mixture of vindication and frustration. You're sure he was in alcohol rehab when she disappeared? Locked facility, 24-hour supervision. No way he could have left. So we're back to having no suspect. Not exactly. Reynolds pulled out a fresh notepad. Bradley's alibi changes things, but it doesn't change the fact that Jessica ended up with your sister's belongings. There's still a connection we're missing. Tell me about the weeks before Lily disappeared. Who was she spending time with? Where was she going after school? Just the usual homework, help, nothing special. Clara paused. Wait, there was something. The week before she disappeared, Lily seemed happier, more confident. She said someone had told her the essay was really good, that she had a real chance at winning. Reynolds made notes. What about friends? Anyone new in her circle, Lily didn't have a big social circle. She was shy, more comfortable with books than people. Most of her friends were from the debate team or academic clubs. Could Jessica have been in any of those activities? Clara shook her head. Jessica was a year younger and from a different crowd entirely. Lily hung out with the honor students and teachers' pets. Jessica. She struggled to find diplomatic words. Jessica. What? From what I remember. Jessica had a reputation, not academic, more like the kind of girl who cut classes and smoked behind the gym. Complete opposites, which is why this connection makes no sense. Reynolds tapped his pen against the notepad. Unless something brought them together, some shared experience or common problem. Like, what? That's what we need to find out. I want to interview Jessica's mother. Clara blinked in surprise. I thought she died years ago. Tom Bradley's ex-wife died. Jessica's biological mother is still alive lives about an hour away in Morgantown. She and Jessica weren't close, but maybe she knows something about what Jessica was doing in those final weeks. The drive to Morgantown took them through rolling hills and farmland, past weathered barns and fields stubbled with corn stalks. Marie Linwood lived in a modest ranch house on a quiet street lined with maple trees. The woman who answered the door looked like an older, wearier version of Jessica. Mrs. Linwood, I'm Detective Reynolds. This is Clara Coleman. We spoke briefly on the phone. May we come in? Marie's hand tightened on the doorframe. You said it was about Jessica. Did you, her voice caught? Did you find something? Mrs. Linwood Reynolds began gently. We found Jessica's remains 3 days ago. The words hit like a physical blow. Marie's face crumpled, 20 years of hope dying in an instant. She pressed both hands to her mouth, tears spilling between her fingers. Oh God, oh my baby. The words came out muffled, broken. Where? How long has she been? She was found at a construction site about 30 miles from where you used to live. The medical examiner estimates she died shortly after she disappeared. 30 miles. Marie wiped her eyes with shaking hands. What was she doing? 30 miles from home. Clara leaned forward, her voice soft with shared grief. Mrs. Linwood, I know this is devastating news, but we need your help understanding what happened to Jessica. My sister disappeared the year before Jessica, and we think the cases might be connected. Marie looked up with red-rimmed eyes. Your sister, Lily Hargrove. She was 15 when she vanished in May 1985. I remember reading about that in the papers. Awful thing. Marie reached for a tissue box on the side table, but I don't understand the connection. Reynolds pulled out the evidence photos, handling them carefully. Jessica was found with identification belonging to Lily Hargrove. We need to understand how the girls knew each other. Marie stared at the images through fresh tears. Lily's driver's license in its evidence bag, the tarnished silver bracelet. I've never seen these things before. Jessica never mentioned anyone named Lily. Are you sure? Think about the weeks before Jessica disappeared. Did she mention new friends? Anyone she was spending time with? Jessica didn't really have friends those last few months. She was so angry about the divorce, about everything falling apart. Marie's voice carried the weight of maternal guilt that time had only deepened. I failed her. I was so focused on my own problems, on just getting through each day, that I didn't see how much she was struggling. Clara felt the familiar stab of recognition. Sometimes kids don't tell us when they're hurting, but they shouldn't have to tell us. We should know. We should pay attention. Marie's tears came harder now. I thought I had time to fix things with Jessica. Thought when the divorce was finalized and things settled down, we could work on our relationship. Reynolds waited for Marie to compose herself before continuing. Take me through Jessica's last few weeks. What was her routine? Where was she going after school? That's just it. Her routine had changed completely. Jessica used to come straight home, complain about homework, argue with me about chores, normal teenage stuff. Marie twisted the tissue in her hands. But those last months she was staying after school almost every day working on projects. She said extra credit assignments. Did you verify this with her teachers? I should have asked more questions, should have gone to the school, met this teacher, but Jessica seemed happier than she'd been in months, and I didn't want to interfere. The parallels to Lily's behavior made Clara's chest tighten. Did this teacher have a name, Davis? I remember now because Jessica mentioned it once or twice. Mr. Davis. Marie's tears started fresh. Do you think we don't know that yet, Mrs. Linwood, but we're going to find out. In the car, Clara sat in silence while Reynolds started the engine. Finally, she spoke. It's him. Davis is the connection we've been looking for. The pattern is clear. Vulnerable teenagers, family problems, special attention, increased confidence, followed by disappearance. Clara stared out the window at suburban houses where normal families live normal lives. How many others do you think there were? Let's hope we don't have to find out the hard way. But as they drove back toward Jefferson, both of them knew they were about to uncover secrets that Richard Davis had been keeping for 30 years. 20 years of questions were finally pointing toward answers. And those answers were more terrifying than anything Clara had dared to consider. Principal Patterson had been at Jefferson High for only 3 years, but he'd pulled every personnel file dating back to 1980. Richard Davis. He read from a folder thick with documentation. English and literature taught here from 1983 to 1987. Detective Reynolds adjusted his reading glasses. Why did he leave? Officially budget cuts. The district eliminated several teaching positions during the recession. Patterson flipped through the papers. Unofficially, there were some concerns. Clara leaned forward in her chair. Around them, the principal's office hummed with the controlled chaos of a school day. Announcements crackling over the intercom, footsteps echoing in hallways, the distant sound of a pep rally rehearsal. What kind of concerns? Nothing formal was ever filed, but I found several memos from the vice principal, at the time woman named Mrs. Henderson. She noted that Davis spent an unusual amount of time with female students, always had girls staying after class, coming to his room during lunch breaks. That's not necessarily inappropriate, Reynolds pointed out. Some teachers naturally connect with students. True, but Mrs. Henderson noted a pattern. The girls were always going through difficult situations at home. Divorce, family, financial problems, abuse situations. Davis seemed to have radar for vulnerable students. Clara's stomach twisted. She thought about her fight with Lily, about her sister's tear-streaked face the night she disappeared. Any specific incidents? Patterson consulted another page. Spring of 1987. A student named Amy Reeves reported feeling uncomfortable with the way Davis spoke to her during after-school tutoring sessions. Her parents requested she be moved to another English teacher. What did Amy say exactly? Davis allegedly told her she was special and more mature than other girls her age. Said he could help her with more than just schoolwork if she trusted him. Patterson's expression was troubled. Amy was 15, dealing with her parents' messy divorce. Reynolds made notes. What happened after the complaint? Davis denied any wrongdoing, said he was simply encouraging a struggling student. Amy's parents didn't push for a formal investigation, just wanted their daughter away from him. Patterson closed the file. Davis left at the end of that school year. I don't think the timing was coincidental. Where did he go? The forwarding address in his file shows Millbrook County, about 2 hours north of here. I called their school district this morning. Davis taught at Millbrook High from 1987 to 1992. Dr. Patricia Wells had been vice principal at Millbrook High during Davis's tenure there. Now retired, she agreed to meet them at a coffee shop near her home. Richard Davis. Dr. Wells stirred sugar into her coffee with deliberate care. I wondered when someone would come asking about him. You remember him clearly. Hard to forget Davis was charismatic. I'll give him that. Students loved him, especially the girls. Parents thought he walked on water during conferences. Dr. Wells's tone suggested she hadn't shared that opinion. But you had concerns. Call it instinct. 35 years in education teaches you to recognize certain patterns. She sipped her coffee. Davis volunteered for every after-school activity, drama club, writing workshop, peer counseling. Always found excuses to work one-on-one with students. Did anyone file complaints? Not formal ones, but I started getting visits from parents whose daughters were spending too much time in Davis's classroom. Girls who'd become secretive about their schoolwork, defensive when parents asked questions. Clara exchanged glances with Reynolds. The parallels to Jessica and Lily were unmistakable. What did you do? I started dropping by his classroom unannounced. Made sure he knew he was being watched. Davis didn't like that. Accused me of harassment, said I was jealous of his rapport with students. How did the administration respond? Dr. Wells's laugh held no humor. This was 1990. Male teachers were still given benefit of the doubt, especially ones who got results. The principal thought I was overreacting until Stephanie Morrison. The name hung in the air like smoke. Clara noticed that Dr. Wells's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee cup. Stephanie was 16 junior year. Parents going through a bitter divorce custody battle, the works. What happened? Stephanie disappeared for 3 days in November 1991. Her parents thought she'd run away to escape the fighting at home. Police treated it as another teenage runaway case. Clara's pulse quickened. Where did they find her? Stephanie came back on her own. Showed up at her mother's house, disheveled, traumatized, refusing to explain where she'd been. But she told her mother she couldn't go back to school. Couldn't be in the same building with Davis. Did she report what happened? Her parents tried to get her to talk, but Stephanie shut down completely. Wouldn't eat, barely slept, had panic attacks when they mentioned Davis's name. They ended up moving to another state, starting over somewhere. Davis couldn't find them. Reynolds leaned forward. Did you investigate? I tried, but without Stephanie's cooperation, there was nothing concrete to pursue. Davis claimed she'd been struggling with the divorce stress, suggested she'd had some kind of breakdown. Did the administration take action? They couldn't formally, but Davis seemed to understand his time was up. He submitted his resignation in December 1991, said he'd found a better opportunity elsewhere. Dr. Wells's expression darkened. I often wondered what happened to that better opportunity and whether there were others, Stephanie. Back in the car, Clara stared at the file of schools where Richard Davis had worked over the past 30 years. He's been doing this for decades, she said. Looks that way, finds vulnerable girls, grooms them under the guise of academic help, then moves on when suspicion builds. Reynolds' phone rang. He checked the caller ID and put it on speaker. Detective Reynolds. Detective, this is Carol Brennan from the State Education Department. You asked me to run background checks on Richard Davis. That's right. I have employment records going back to 1978. Davis has worked at 11 different schools in 4 states. The pattern is consistent. Stellar performance reviews for the first 2 years, then declining performance and early resignation. Current status, he's not actively teaching anymore. Last position was at Payne Ridge Academy in 2019. He took early retirement at age 55. Clara felt her heart rate spike. Is he still alive? Very much so. Current address shows rural property in Fairfield County, about 40 minutes from your location. Reynolds grabbed his pen. I'll need that address. As they drove toward Fairfield, Clara tried to imagine what they might find. A lonely old man living quietly in retirement, or something she couldn't even barely imagine. The Fairfield County Sheriff's Office smelled of burned coffee and old paperwork. Donna Martinez reviewed the documentation with growing concern. Officer Sarah Chen entered the conference room carrying a stack of files and looking like she'd been awake for 36 hours straight. Detective, I've got preliminary results from the record search. Sheriff Martinez stood and walked to the wall map. How far is Davis's property from town? 22 miles. No close neighbors. Nearest house is about a mile away through forest. Chen's expression was grim. Perfect setup for someone who values privacy. Too perfect. Reynolds gathered the files. We move in tomorrow. Dawn crept over the Missouri countryside in shades of gray and gold, mist rising from fields and forest as the search warrant team assembled in the parking lot of Henderson's Gas and Bait. Sheriff Martinez conducted the final briefing while officers checked equipment and reviewed tactical plans. Primary objective is evidence collection, she announced to the 15 assembled law enforcement personnel, but we go in prepared for anything. Detective Reynolds adjusted his bulletproof vest and checked his weapon. Clara sat in an unmarked car 50 yards away, close enough to monitor radio traffic, but far enough from potential danger. All units, this is 1. Sheriff Martinez's voice crackled over the radio, moving to approach positions. Richard Davis's property stretched along both sides of a narrow dirt road that wound through dense oak and pine forest. The main house sat in a clearing about half a mile from the highway, a modest 2-story farmhouse that had been recently renovated, fresh paint, new roof windows that gleamed with professional cleaning. But it was the outwoodings that caught Reynolds' attention as they crept through the treeing. A large barn that looked too well maintained, several smaller structures that might once have housed farm equipment but now sported heavy-duty locks and security cameras, and behind the main house a concrete structure that was clearly newer than everything else on the property. Underground shelter at 210, Officer Chen whispered into her radio. Reinforced door, electronic locks, ventilation system visible. Sheriff Martinez's voice came back tense. Any signs of Davis? Negative. No movement in the house. Vehicles in the driveway. Dark blue pickup truck with Missouri plates. Breach team, move to front entrance. Support units cover the perimeter. Remember, we're looking for evidence of kidnapping and murder. Expect the worst. The front door exploded inward under the impact of the battering ram. Splinters flying as the tactical team poured into the house. Kitchen clear, living room clear, first floor, bathroom clear. The team moved upstairs with practiced precision, clearing bedrooms and checking closets with military efficiency. But the house felt empty, abandoned with the particular stillness that suggested hasty departure. Sheriff, you need to see this. Officer Chen's voice carried from the master bedroom. Reynolds climbed the stairs and found Chen standing in front of an open closet. Inside, dozens of folders lined shelves from floor to ceiling. Each folder bore a name written in Davis's careful handwriting. Each name belonged to a teenage girl. Jesus Christ, Sheriff Martinez breathed, pulling one folder at random. Inside were photographs, copies of school records, handwritten notes documenting personal details and family problems. He's been keeping files on students for 30 years. Reynolds scanned the folder labels looking for familiar names. Jennifer Walsh, Lisa Warner, Amanda Rodriguez, and there near the bottom shelf, 2 folders that made his blood run cold. Lily Harrove, Jessica Linwood. Sheriff Reynolds called out, his voice tight with urgency. We need to check those outwardings immediately. They found Davis 20 minutes later. He'd barricaded himself in the barn, surrounded by enough supplies to last weeks. Richard Davis, this is Sheriff Martinez. Her voice boomed through the megaphone. We have a search warrant for these premises. You need to come out with your hands visible. Silence from the barn. Davis, we found the files. We know about the girls. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. More silence. Then the barn door cracked open 6 in. You don't understand. Davis's voice carried across the clearing, thin and ray. They need me. Come out and we'll talk about it. I saved them from broken homes, from parents who didn't appreciate what they had. Reynolds felt bile rise in his throat. Even cornered Davis was still justifying 30 years of kidnapping and abuse as some kind of educational mission. Last chance, Davis. Come out or we're coming in. The response was the bark of a shotgun from inside the barn. Pellets sprayed dirt near Officer Chen's position, close enough to shred leaves from the bush she'd taken cover behind. Shots fired, she yelled into her radio. Suspect is armed and hostile. Sheriff Martinez made the call Reynolds had been dreading. All units converge on the barn. The standoff lasted just 5 minutes. The turning point came when Officer Donovan managed to reach the barn's rear wall undetected. His flashbang grenade, tossed through a window Davis hadn't anticipated, ended the resistance in a burst of light and sound that left everyone within 50 yards temporarily deaf. They found Davis on the barn floor, shotgun fallen from nerveless fingers, blood trickling from his ears. Richard Davis, you're under arrest, Sheriff Martinez shouted over the ringing in her own ears. Kidnapping, false imprisonment, resisting arrest, and attempted murder of a police officer. As they cuffed Davis and loaded him into the ambulance, Reynolds turned his attention to the concrete shelter behind the house. The electronic lock on the shelter door yielded to Officer Chen's bolt cutters after 5 minutes of sparks and metal screaming. The heavy steel door swung open to reveal stairs leading down into darkness. Reynolds drew his flashlight and weapon, then started down the steps toward whatever Richard Davis had been hiding for 20 years. The concrete steps descended into darkness that seemed to swallow Reynolds' flashlight beam. The air grew cooler with each step down, carrying scents that made his stomach clench. Police Reynolds called out, his voice echoing off concrete walls. If anyone's down here, we're here to help. Silence. Then so faint he almost missed it, the sound of movement, fabric rustling. The stairwell opened into a hallway lined with doors, 4 on each side, each secured with heavy deadbolts that could only be operated from the outside. Sheriff, I've got multiple rooms down here. Reynolds radioed. Doors all locked from the outside. Copy that. EMTs are standing by. Reynolds approached the first door and pressed his ear against the wood. Nothing. He slid the deadbolt back and pushed the door open to reveal a small room, furnished with a single bed desk and bookshelf. Clean but cramped like a minimalist dormitory, empty. The second room was identical. The third. At the fourth door, Reynolds heard it again. That soft rustle of movement. He motioned for Chen to take position on the opposite side of the frame, then slowly worked the deadbolt. We're police officers, he said through the door. We're here to help. I'm going to open the door now. The room beyond was larger than the others, furnished with 2 beds instead of 1. In the far corner, 2 figures huddled together on a mattress. A woman with gray, streaked brown hair and a child who couldn't have been more than 10. Lily. After 20 years, he'd found Lily Harrove. She stared at him with eyes that had seen too much, her arms wrapped protectively around the little girl who pressed against her side. My name is Detective Reynolds, he said softly, keeping his voice low and non-threatening. Your sister Clara sent me. We're here to take you home. Lily's face went through a series of emotions: confusion, hope, terror, disbelief. When she spoke, her voice was a whisper roughened by years of disuse. Clara, my sister, Clara. She's been looking for you for 20 years. She never stopped. Tears spilled down Lily's cheek. The evacuation took careful coordination. Dr. Patricia Hayes, the emergency physician, conducted preliminary medical evaluations underground before moving the victims. Severe malnutrition, Dr. Hayes murmured to Reynolds as she examined Lily. Vitamin deficiencies, muscle atrophy consistent with limited physical activity, but she's stable enough for transport. The girl's examination revealed similar issues, though. Her smaller frame suggested she'd been born in captivity and had never known anything else. She hadn't spoken a word since they'd found her communicating only through gestures and staying pressed against Lily's side. Has she ever been outside? Dr. Hayes asked Lily. No, Richard said the outside world was dangerous for her, that people would try to take her away from me if they knew about her. And you? Have you been outside in the past 20 years? Lily shook her head. Not since the night I came here. The ambulance ride to the hospital felt surreal. Clara sat in her car following the emergency vehicles, her hands shaking on the steering wheel as she processed what Reynolds had told her over the radio. Alive. Lily was alive and she was with a girl. At the hospital, Clara waited in a family consultation room while a medical staff conducted thorough evaluations. She's held together remarkably well, Dr. Hayes explained during the initial briefing, but 20 years of isolation and control have left their mark. The reintegration process will be complex and lengthy. What about the girl? Physically, she's healthy given the circumstances, but she's never been socialized outside of captivity. No interaction with other children, no exposure to normal social situations. She's essentially feral in terms of social development. Clara closed her eyes and tried to imagine what her sister had endured. 20 years of living in an underground prison, raising a child in conditions of complete isolation, believing she had no choice but to accept whatever Richard Davis demanded. The hospital room was dimly lit at Lily's request. She sat on the edge of the bed, holding the girl against her side in a protective gesture that had clearly become instinctive. Clara stopped in the doorway, afraid to breathe. Clara? Lily's voice was tentative, uncertain. Hi, Lily. I'm here. For a moment, neither sister moved. Then Lily was on her feet, closing the distance between them, and they were holding each other for the first time in 20 years. Clara felt her sister's bones too close to the surface, felt the tremor in her shoulders that spoke of tears held back too long. I'm sorry, Clara whispered into Lily's hair. I'm so sorry about that night, about everything I said. I've regretted it every day since. If I hadn't betrayed your trust, you never would have gone to him. You never would have. Clara, stop. Lily pulled back to look at her sister's face. I should have seen through his facade, but I was too young and vulnerable. Clara looked toward Emma, who watched their conversation with Davis's cold, intelligent eyes. The girl, is she? Another of Richard's victims. Her name is Emma. She is mine. Lily's tone became fierce, protective. Richard is her father. The words sent chills through Clara's spine. Promise me, Clara. Promise me that no matter what happens with courts and social services and all the legal stuff, you'll help me keep Emma. She's never known any other mother. Taking her away from me would destroy her. Clara looked at the little girl who'd been born in a concrete cell and raised by a woman who'd sacrificed everything to give her love despite impossible circumstances. I promise we'll figure it out together. Together. You're my sister. You and Emma are both my family now. Whatever you need, recovery, legal help, a place to live, time to adjust, we'll handle it together. For the first time since their reunion, Lily smiled. I dreamed about you sometimes. Wondered if you'd gotten married, had kids, what your life looked like. 2 kids, Michael and Sarah. They're 10 and 6 now. Clara pulled out her phone to show pictures. They're excited to meet their aunt, both of them. Lily studied the photos with an expression of wonder. They look like us at that age. Troublemakers, just like we were. Michael especially. He's got your stubborn streak. Emma finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Mama's this lady really your sister? Lily smoothed the child's hair. Yes, sweetheart. This is Clara. She's your aunt. Emma studied Clara with the particular intensity of a child who'd learned early to evaluate potential threats. Are you going to take us somewhere safe? Clara knelt down to Emma's eye level. I'm going to help your mama take care of you, and yes, you'll be safe, and no one's ever going to hurt either of you again. Promise. I promise. The interview room at the county jail smelled of disinfectant and despair. Richard Davis sat at a metal table with his hands cuffed to a chain around his waist. Detective Reynolds arranged case files on the table with deliberate care, ensuring Davis could see the evidence photos that documented 30 years of crimes. To his left, DA Patricia Voss operated a digital recorder, while Sheriff Martinez observed from a corner chair. No lawyer sat beside Davis. He'd waived his right to counsel after being informed that Lily and Emma were alive and safe. "Let's start with Lily Hargrove. Tell me about the night she disappeared." Davis steepled his fingers, a gesture that probably felt natural after decades of classroom lectures. "Lily came to me on May the 3rd, 1985 in considerable emotional distress. She'd had an argument with her twin sister, felt betrayed and humiliated. So you decided to kidnap her. I provided her with a safe space to process her emotions." Davis's tone remained clinical, detached. Lily was exceptionally bright, but trapped in an environment that stifled her growth. "I offered her an alternative by drugging her and locking her in an underground cell. By removing her from harmful circumstances and providing structure." Davis tilted his head, studying Reynolds like a specimen. Voss leaned forward. "What about Jessica Linwood?" Jessica's situation was even more dire. Alcoholic stepfather, codependent mother, chaotic family environment that was rapidly deteriorating. She came to me seeking someone who recognized her worth. Jessica showed remarkable promise but lacked confidence due to negative messaging from her family. Reynolds opened Jessica's case file, spreading crime scene photos across the table. "These are pictures of Jessica's remains, Mr. Davis. Explain to me how murder helped her reach her potential." For the first time, Davis's composure cracked slightly. He glanced at the photographs, then looked away. Jessica's outcome was unfortunate. Unfortunate. She wanted to go home. "So you killed her?" "I stopped her." The words came out flat. Matter of fact, Jessica escaped on the night of November 15, 1986, carrying Lily's identification and detailed information about our location. She intended to bring authorities back to destroy everything I'd built. "Mr. Davis, do you understand that you're going to prison for the rest of your life?" Davis fell silent again, but his expression remained confident, unrepentant. Even faced with life imprisonment, he believed he'd been conducting important work that would someday be recognized and appreciated. The courthouse steps were slick with November rain. As Clara helped Lily navigate through the crowd of reporters and photographers that had gathered for Davis's sentencing, hearing Emma clung to Lily's other hand, overwhelmed by the chaos of voices and camera flashes that represented her first real exposure to the outside world. "No comment," Clara repeated for the 15th time as microphones thrust toward them. "The family has no comment." Inside, Judge Patricia Brennan delivered the sentence with clinical precision. Davis stood motionless as the words fell around him, showing no emotion as the BOF led him away to begin a prison term that would end only with his death. Lily watched him disappear through the courtroom doors, her expression unreadable. 1 year later, the backyard barbecue was Clara's idea, a celebration of Emma's first successful school year and Lily's completion of her GED program. Extended family gathered around picnic tables laden with hamburgers and corn on the cob, while children ran through sprinkler water and adults pretended to supervise. Emma sat slightly apart from the chaos, reading a book that was probably 3 grade levels above her age, but she looked up frequently to watch the other children play. "She's doing better," Clara said, settling into the lawn chair beside Lily. "Dr. Montenegro says her social development is accelerating now that she's around other kids regularly, but she still asks me sometimes if we're going to have to go back underground." "What do you tell her?" "The truth, that Davis is in prison forever, that we're safe, that no one will ever take her away from me again." Clara handed Lily a cold beer, a simple pleasure that still felt miraculous after 20 years. The custody hearing went well. Judge Morrison awarded me full parental rights. "She's officially mine now. She always was yours." They watched Emma finally approach the other children, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence as Clara's twins included her in their water balloon fight. The sound of Emma's laughter, genuine, carefree laughter, was still rare enough to make both women stop and listen. "I've been thinking about what's next," Lily said. "What do you mean?" "Maybe college courses or job training or I want to work with trauma survivors' kids who've been abused or kidnapped. I understand things about that experience that textbooks can't teach." Clara studied her sister's profile. "Are you sure you're ready for something that intense?" "I'll probably never be completely ready, but I have insights that could help other survivors." "What kind of work are you thinking about? Victim advocacy maybe, or counseling, once I get proper training?" "There are girls out there right now going through what I went through. Maybe I can help them find their way back." Clara reached over and squeezed Lily's hand. "You know I'll support whatever you decide. You've already proven you can survive anything. Now you get to choose what comes next." As the afternoon wound down and guests began reluctantly gathering their children and heading home, Emma came running to Lily with grass stains on her shirt and a smile that transformed her entire face. "She's going to be okay," Clara said, watching Emma animatedly describe her fort-building plans. As evening settled over the backyard, Lily allowed herself something she hadn't experienced in 21 years: complete peace. Emma was healthy and happy and learning to trust the world. Clara had her sister back after 2 decades of guilt and grief. The extended family had embraced both returning members without reservation or condition, and Lily herself, for the first time since she was 15 years old, was free to become whoever she chose to be. "Thank you," she said to Clara as they cleaned up paper plates and empty bottles. "For what? For never giving up. I'm your sister." Giving up was never an option. Emma appeared at Lily's side, tired but content from her day of normal childhood experiences. "Mama, can we come back here tomorrow? We live here now. Remember, this is our home forever." "Forever," she promised. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, give this video a like if you haven't already and subscribe for more.